the fastest year we've ever seen. Since we are advocates of exponential growth, we know what to expect for 2025, right? This is not going to stop. Right?
We have real Jedis now, people with a chip in their head, exactly like you said, that can control devices. Like this is literally straight out of Cyberpunk, and he's made such a massive comeback, not just on a personal level with his image, but
what's the single most important thing to do innovation? And the answer is dare to fail.
I'd say that by the end of 2025, we'll see at least 3-4% growth in job displacement in all of Europe.
Hey buddy, good day. How are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. It is the last day of the year.
It surely is. The last day of the fastest year we've ever seen.
Fastest year we've ever seen.
In terms of technological change. What a crazy year, right?
Yeah. It has been a crazy year, and yet I was writing an article, and I think it's being published today by Businesswise for the persgroep in the Netherlands. And I was writing about how most people are actually completely unaware. And I think that because of the speed of change, more and more people are kind of tuning out.
Right. Yeah.
People are saying, the AI hype is over, but I think that they're saying that because they're tuning out, because
exactly. Like, well, the hype is not over. You're deliberately checking out. That's something completely different. And it's also interesting, Aragorn, because we are on top of these things, but we both had taken, more than a week vacation, as good as we could. And so I just literally turned on my laptop to have this conversation with you. And I looked back at all the feeds that I have open. So if you look at the feeds of a week, that is, if I would read all of that, that would take me a year, right? It's just insane, the amount of that. So if you check out just for a couple of days, we already miss stuff, right? And that's not even deliberate. If you turn it out, you miss so many angles and perspectives on what AI is currently doing in terms of material, energy, and all these things that we discuss. It's crazy.
Yeah, and normally, I don't know about you, both of us worked in American tech, right? You worked at Salesforce, I worked at LinkedIn, Oracle. And the end of year, it's always super busy in terms of closing deals. But past the second week of December, usually that's it. Now, nothing really eventful happens anymore. That's how it used to be for me as a professional. Now, it seems like December was like the most jam-packed month of announcements and things. And I'm not even really sure why that's happening, but it also seemed like it was building on itself. Like OpenAI was doing announcements, and then Google was doing announcement, and then Microsoft was doing announcement. And it was like they were on the fly changing what they were announcing just because they wanted to beat each other at what was the craziest thing they could possibly announce. And this is literally the month where everybody's trying to take a little bit of holiday, you, me as well. And it's like they packed a month's worth of shit in like a single week. Just in the time where we're trying to kind of wind down for the year. It's been crazy.
And since we are advocates of exponential growth, we know what to expect for 2025, right? This is not going to stop. But before we dive into 2025, today we're going to do it a little bit different. We're going to quickly look back at 2024. I would love to hear from you what stood out as just on top of mind, what you thought, well, this was interesting. And then we dive in some predictions. And I know a lot of people do these kind of lists, but I think we have a lot of people and companies that we work with that we want to share our insights in the coming years, what's important, right? So, but let's look back just quickly. What stood out in 2024 for you?
Well, for me, looking back, the first thing I think of is that a year ago, I said 2024 is not going to be the year of multimodality, which is what a lot of people were talking about, multimodal AIs. And they were definitely part of what happened this year, right? Models that were capable of both combining vision and audio, and we saw advanced voice mode, all of that stuff. But I said it's going to be the year of robotics. And although I recognize that for a lot of people, they might not be so aware of how it was the year of robotics. So in the public eye, it might not necessarily seem that way. But I think that is probably the single most important thing to realize is that a year ago, nobody was really talking about humanoid robots. It was like a science fiction fantasy. Tesla was working on it and we knew, but that was about it. But there was Figure 1. And in this year, we've seen the transition from robots that were, just capable of doing programmed stuff to being fully integrated with large language models and other AI, making them be able to do incredible things, work in factories for BMW. Figure went to its second model, which is now being already rolled out to mass production. Elon had his big announcement where he had the robots. It was really, really, really a big year for robots. So that's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing
I just wanted to add to that.
Go on.
I totally agree with that. And what surprises me is the big leap that we've made. So we had these small robots like Aibo or big arms in factories. And if we go back 3 or 4 years, I would imagine a in-between model coming somewhere, a household robot that looks like a vacuum cleaner that's a little bit smarter. And now we jump immediately to a completely humanoid that can basically mimic a complete human due to the power of AI. And that's surprising to me.
Yeah, it's absolutely surprising. And on every level. There's a lot we could say about it, but let's not go too long on everything. But that's just the number one. The second thing I think we really need to take a short moment to appreciate is that in 1 year, in 2024, we went from GPT-4 to GPT-4o to GPT-01, and we've already had 03 announced. And there's already results available online that show what it's been capable of. For example, in terms of the ARC test, which is one of the most, or if not the most complicated test ever devised by human beings, where it scored 25%, which seems low, but if you consider that most humans don't even get past a few percent, even if they're top experts in their field, like the implications of that are so massive. I don't even know how to explain it. And we did that in a single year.
Yeah. No, I agree. That was just amazing to follow. Yeah. Nothing to add to that, Aragorn. That was just, and let's see where it goes next year if that trend continues. And I think it does continue. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go on. There's just one thing that comes to mind I want to say about this, which is not about looking back, but about realization. And that is, there's still people that say to me, Aragorn, I tried ChatGPT and it didn't work or it's not impressive. And the realization I had this week is that when it comes to these models, their sophistication is also based on let me put this differently. These models are mirrors. And let me explain what I mean by that. I wrote in my article for DPG as well that there's this leading immunologist, Derya Unutmaz, I hope I pronounce it correctly. And he wrote that he's one of 3 people in the entire world that understands immunology and viruses at his level, right? And he wrote a paper about it with some students. And then he asked 01, right? 01, he asked 01 to give critiques on the paper. And when he got their critiques, and you can read the tweet, he said he was blown away by the complexity and the depth of the critiques, the things that he would have never thought of that 01 came up with. And so you have this leading scientist who says, holy shit, this model is doing stuff that I mean the best of the best of the best people in the world wouldn't be able to do like this. And then on the other hand, you have people that say, I tried 01 and it doesn't win at tic-tac-toe. And this is the thing, right? We have this tendency as human beings to be very selective on what we use as a measure of judging something, its value or its capabilities. And so what we're doing with these models is that they are an absolute reflection of us and the things we try to achieve with them. If you're asking stupid questions, and this is not nice to a lot of people, but if you ask stupid questions, you're going to get stupid answers. Yeah. But these models are already at a point where if you ask complicated, deep, meaningful, well-structured questions, you get meaningful, deep, structured answers.
Yeah. You got me thinking there with everything that you said, that so it's reaching a level of intelligence that we just do not comprehend, right? Mathematical challenges that I don't come up with. I don't even have the question. I don't even ask these questions to ChatGPT, which ChatGPT can already solve, right? And it mimics also a normal conversation. If I go to a football club or to an average birthday party, there might be a genius in the room, but you don't recognize that, but because the conversation is not going in that direction. And that plays into people maybe not checking out. Maybe a lot of people don't even notice on what level it's now being developed. That is because only just a small group of people understand the complexity of that intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And there's something else I want to say about, but maybe we'll get to that in a bit, because there was another wonderful tweet from Ethan Bullock about how Douglas Adams turned out to be right about machines and everything. But hopefully we'll catch that later.
Okay. Yeah. So what's interesting is that this technology is flying by for some people, but also for me. So I've known the effort and company of Neuralink for quite some time. Elon Musk has been working years on it. We saw the monkey video, and then all of a sudden, it was early in this year, we have the first patients. And this is one of the things, this is basically a cyborg, right? We talk about people that are cyborgs, and this person can move things with his mind. He can turn on lights, he can control a computer with that. And I thought when we would reach that stage, there would be more interest in that. You would hear it more on the street that this is happening. I'm just amazed by, okay, we have a Neuralink patient and the second is here, and how slowly that basically goes in the general adoption. But I just want to market it. I thought it was a key moment in history, having the first Neuralink patient in 2024.
100%. And in not just the first, we got 2 or 3 now already. Yeah. So we went in like 3, 4, 5 years, Neuralink was developing. You saw, they're doing something with a monkey. And then suddenly in 1 year, we went from the first human to having 3 humans. And then Neuralink announcing that they're developing now a version of it that will basically give blind people vision again. And okay, this vision is not going to be the same resolution as an organic eye in its first edition. But 5, 10 years from now, these people will be able to see through walls. It's not science fiction. That's how fast it's progressing now. We have real Jedis now, people with a chip in their head, exactly like you said, that can control devices. Like, this is literally straight out of Cyberpunk. And like you said, the response was kind of, lowish. But again, I think there's just too much going on. There's too much going on. Also with the election with Trump, there's so much other things taking people's attention that these incredible, mind-bending, civilization-changing moments are really passing a lot of people by, and they're just not aware of it.
Yeah. So you just mentioned Trump. I think that is also a very interesting point about 2024. And what I find very interesting about it is, on his first term, I didn't recognize he was so, let's call it pro-technology. You saw all the stock going up, Web3, crypto, it's all on the rise since he has been elected. But also the fact that he collaborates with Elon Musk, I find it very intriguing. Elon Musk, so successful in all his endeavors, never bet against him. And I always said here in the Netherlands, so why don't we put a real strong businessman somewhere in politics to do something? And now this is basically happening. And I'm just super curious to see how that plays out, at least.
Yeah, well, look, if you told me 4 years ago that I would rather have Trump win than, for example, a Democrat, I would have told you that you are absolutely bonkers, that would be impossible and unacceptable. And, this is not a political podcast, but, there's a lot that could be said about that, about how political landscape has shifted in a way that has allowed people like you and me, who always considered themselves to be center left wing, probably, we now feel that suddenly we find ourselves on the right of the political spectrum against all odds, even though there's topics, for example, like climate change, where you and me are 100% completely on the left side of that. But I also want to be honest there, that I think Trump was not pro-technology in his last term, right? He wasn't. No. This is something recent, and there's many interpretations you could give to that. You could say, well, he's working with Elon Musk, he's being influenced. But you could also just say, well, look, the man is an opportunist to the core. He saw an opportunity here to kind of find a completely new way of activating a following that has potential to be really powerful, and Elon Musk is part of that. So yeah, I think that is some part of the true story, but we're definitely benefiting from it. So I'm not going to complain there.
No, exactly. So, is there anything more that you want to touch upon from last year before we delve into 2025?
I think we covered it. I mean, I'm sure hundreds of people have talked about how Elon Musk already caught Starship in his little chopsticks. That was absolutely amazing, but maybe less relevant exactly to what we do. Let's see what else. We covered everything. Well, we should give honorary mention to Mark Zuckerberg. I think I had a discussion again this weekend about tech CEOs, and Mark Zuckerberg has not always been the most popular one. The man has had tough years. He made some really big mistakes in the last decade, but this year he showed the whole world that, he can just completely turn this shit around.
Yeah.
He's made such a massive comeback, not just on a personal level with his image, but with Meta and how he has positioned things against, almost, I would say, against all odds. Yeah. He's turning this mammoth tanker against the will and interests of his shareholders who always, basically never agreed with him on anything. He's made all the right decisions, and that's why I respect him so much more than, for example, someone like Tim Cook, who I usually call Tim Crook, because Tim Cook basically got the keys to the kingdom from Steve Jobs, proceeded to milk it for 15 years and didn't do a single thing that was risky or really innovative.
Ultimate corporate survivor.
Ultimate corporate survivor, and the only thing he did try with the Vision Pro, he completely cocked it up, and then he didn't double down, because that's another thing. Mark Zuckerberg had the same thing with VR, but instead of then giving up, he just doubled down on it, and eventually he turned out to be right. So I just want to say, Mark Zuckerberg, you're a fucking champion for me.
No, I completely agree. And I often get the question, so what's the single most important thing to do innovation? And the answer is dare to fail. And how much money did he blew away against all odds for the general investor in the Metaverse, changing the name? When was that name changed? 4 or 5 years ago already? He blew away. Well, I'm even copying the words, right? Blew away 10, 20, 30 billion US dollar on it. But look where he's now. He released Orion, and it looks like he's in the best shape for the coming 5-6 years when we talk about Metaverse and augmented reality and virtual reality. And well, that is that's what's coming in the near future. So here we are.
Absolutely. I mean, I honestly believe that what he did with Orion is he did what Apple should have done. He showed the horizon of what technology could be, it should be, and where we're heading. Yeah. And Orion is, it's not a consumer product, but at the start of the 90s, mobile phones were 10K as well, right? And they were rare. Here we are today. And what happened in 30 years before with mobile phones is going to happen in 10, 15 years now with this kind of technology. So just imagine what would that translate to? We went from basically bricks this size that couldn't last an hour without a suitcase battery. We went to, well, look, I got my collection here. Oh, you can't see it in the screen, but we went to this and now this. And so, that's going to happen with these AR glasses that Mark announced. In 10 years from now, you and me will be wearing some piece of tech that is literally projecting everything in our eyes. And he showed us that it's not just possible, it's already reality.
All right, so let's dive into the next year. As we said in the beginning of this conversation, it's not going to slow down. It's only going to speed up. So I think the single most important thing for people and companies is to be very serious about a flexible growth mindset and find a way left or right to understand the changes that are upon you and deal with them. And luckily we have the Innovation Network to help you with that. That's what we do. We share the news with that. But seriously, there's a reason why we do this, right? People need to learn to save these technological waves. And if you don't, you're going to drown. That's basically how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be very easy in 2025, especially at the start, to say, well, look, last year everybody was talking about AI and they said it was going to be super impactful, but I still don't really see it. And we got Microsoft Copilot at work, but I can't figure out how to use it in Excel, so I'm still doing it by hand. It's going to be very easy for a lot of people to say that. But if they maintain that mindset, they're going to have some real trouble by the end of 2025. 100% guaranteed, because like you and me know, all of these companies are working extremely fast and extremely hard to kind of come to that, what they call agentic AI, right? So AI that is no longer just a chatbot responding, but AI that can do autonomously, that can work autonomously and go through a series of actions towards a final goal, right? So kind of work on a project base where you're given an assignment and then it goes and figures stuff out. And it's not just one AI. You have to think of this, it's like basically you get these integrations where your AI operates like a team with different kind of functionalities which represent different team members. And Satya Nadella, has said online, and the same goes for Google, right, with the Pichai Sundar. They've both said that they are going all in on this, right? Satya Nadella went on an interview. He said, apps as we know them today are basically going to be disappearing completely over the next few years.
Yeah.
And 2025 is going to be a big move already there. They're going to completely disappear because he said that they're just a thin layer on top of a database. And this is very simplified. But that layer, which used to be apps like Excel or any kind of software, are going to be completely replaced by AI, which will make it far more intuitive and natural to interact with these databases through these AI. And this AI will basically on the fly start programming whatever it is we need to get a particular task done. So the idea of apps, specific apps, is going to disappear. We're going into this kind of fluid state where software basically adapts to our needs. And 2025 is going to be the first year where we're going to see some introductions like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the impact of that, right? Because if large companies like Salesforce and Microsoft are already doing this, the developers, niche players, influencers already have smart setups, already have agents. So just imagine the amount of content that is going to be generated in terms of media, social media content, entertainment, and all these kind of things. Normally, data is going to double every year. I expect that the data next year is not going to be doubled twice. It's going to be at least 10 times, because if you are an influencer and you are putting work into content that you create, you can automate it. You can have a bot speak on your behalf, curate content. So there will be so much content out there for an organization. If you want to come in between there with the right advertisement or reaching your audience, you have to either participate smart or deal with that in a smart way or find unique ways to your audience, because it's going to be overflown with AI generated content.
Yeah. Although on the one hand, I completely agree with that. And on the other hand, I have to admit that looking back to 2024, I was really surprised at how little AI-generated content found its way into the mainstream influencing people. I mean, even the elections, I would have expected there to be way more in AI-generated content already. And
I think... I think that has very much to do with the advancement that you have, because now the tools are in everybody's hands. If you want to do things like that in 2024, you have to know what you're doing. You have to connect all these things together. But now these kind of agents become a commodity tool for everybody to use, and that will change.
Yeah, you're probably making a good point there. I also have to say, thinking to myself, I wonder how much AI-generated content there already was during the Trump election that we simply weren't even aware of because of how subtle it might have worked, right? Because that's the thing. It's very easy, even especially for people like you and me, to think that we would be aware of it. But the sophistication, I mean, unless you're going to make a whole AI movie in 2024 where you would easily see it, if you're just making small clips, you're making a social media post, maybe you and me didn't even see them. But I mean, I hate being on TikTok, don't get me wrong, because of have you ever read the comments on TikTok when you post something? There's so many people out there that have absolutely no idea what they're saying or what they're seeing or what they're looking at. So
no, exactly. Yeah. So during our last meetup, I was at a table and we talked about Homo Nexus. And there was one person, I don't know the guy's name, but he mentioned that all humans will basically become curators of what you want all your agents to do. Everybody becomes a CEO of a team of AIs that you would do tasks for. This AI is helping with email. The other one does the scheduling. This is one that helps me being creative or making a marketing campaign. And for me, there was an interesting perspective to kind of look at it, that everybody gets elevated to a level of becoming a curator or a director, if you will, from what your AIs are willing to do, what your AI agents, what you want them to do. Interesting perspective, I thought.
Yeah. The question I have is that in my mind, and I'm convinced that eventually we'll get to that point, but maybe not directly at first. In my mind, I'm seeing a kind of a tree, right? Because you talk about the CEO of your own team. And the CEO doesn't talk to everybody in his company, right? The CEO talks to the top, team that's responsible for things. And then they go out and they kind of, give tasks to different people to get stuff done. So we're going to get to a point, maybe not in 2025, we're going to get to a point where basically you're only talking to one AI, right? There's just one AI, your personal digital twin or your mirror or your shadow, or whatever you want to call it, that number one AI that is with you all the time, everywhere. And this is, of course, going to be tricky because that's where the danger of dystopia comes in, because if one single company would control that technology, like if everybody had a Google AI, it could be very, very, very scary and dangerous. So we don't particularly want that. And you also don't want to be locked in. The idea of being locked into it's not going to happen because Apple has no AI, but imagine being locked into an Apple AI kind of world where that AI is your only point of contact, your only, gateway to all of your things, which is in control of everything you do and setting the tasks. But I think that's where we're going to go, right? Eventually.
Ultimately, it's indeed. Currently, it sounds dystopian to have something like that. But 5 years ago, we thought Trump was dystopian. So things change over time, right? It's interesting. But what I meant with the CEO perspective is that if a CEO gets so much crisp content from all these people, all these departments around, and based on that content, he or she is making quick decisions. Oh, go this, go there. And I see all these AI agents looking through our email, making the right decision, giving us the right information, but still for the human to make the right decisions. Go left, go right, say yes, say no, based on that, like a CEO is doing the entire day. And I see more people growing into that role, even if they have a small business with AI agents that are employees, basically. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the people that will be fastest to pick up on this, the first to integrate it, will be the ones that benefit the most.
There you go.
My friend Danny was here, and he works in London at a tech company, and he's a super smart guy, and he transitioned to being manager a year ago, so he's a manager now. And I said to him, you got to be happy, man, because him and me, we started working at LinkedIn in 2020, him in 2012, me in 2014, I think. And we were, SDRs, and I wasn't, I already did that job at a different company, but, I was a sales professional, and my job was reaching out, being in touch, calling clients. And I truly believe that by the end of 2025, there will be not just one company like Klarna did last year, but there will be a lot of really big companies who are literally right in the middle of completely transitioning to basically getting rid of all of these human workers on that level and replacing them on the AI. And by the time we're reaching 2026, 2027, people like Danny, not all of them, but a lot of them will simply be a manager of a team of AIs, right? And anybody below that level will, they will no longer be needed. That's really my expectation.
So that's the first real prediction here, agentic AI in 2024. And just to double down a little bit on it, I think by the end of 2025, sorry, I said 24. So by the end of 2025, AIs, we will see the creative AIs as well that run a complete marketing campaign. So you can kind of orchestrate that as a human.
Yeah, Yeah.
Okay.
I just had a brain fart.
As long as you keep it to brain farts, it's all good.
No, I was just thinking that as predictions go, I'm pretty sure that by the end of 2025, Anthropic and OpenAI and Microsoft will, OpenAI is custom GPTs, but by the end of 2025, you will be able to build basically an organization on OpenAI. So you go on OpenAI, you will be able to build individual AIs to do individual tasks, put them into a team, with a managing AI on top, which is literally a point of contact where you engage. Something along those lines.
Exactly. And that will not cost you 20 euros a month. That will be a significantly higher price, which is the new model of them. There you go. Yeah. Okay, let's move to another prediction. We just briefly talked about Mark Zuckerberg, right? Orion glasses are coming. Meta glasses are everywhere already. Well, everywhere you see them, they're sold out everywhere, so they're doing well. What's your take on the Metaverse? Do you have any predictions there, Aragorn?
Yeah, well, the technology has progressed really rapidly this year. We've seen AI being used to even generate games rather than render games.
Yeah.
And that technology has great potential, but the resolution and the quality wasn't really at the level of a AAA or a game yet. So my expectation is that AAA gaming companies will be looking at this kind of technology. And this also kind of ripples out to the wider metaverse, right? Because metaverse is not just games, but the gaming industry and gaming and the technology that's being used for games is ultimately also the kind of technology that on a lot of levels powers the metaverse. Yeah. So things like generated games, AI generated powered NPCs, I think that a lot of mainstream companies will be looking at it. But the problem with these studios is that they usually plan for games 5 to 10 years ahead, right? So they already have a planning, already have a strategy. And I think that most of them will not be willing to step out of that to do things completely different. So I think, as a prediction, that in 2025, the first company that will really rock the boat with this kind of AI-generated games and AI-powered NPCs is going to be an indie company. It's going to be an indie, which didn't have the fucking years of, sorry for the swearing, but the decade-long planning, which is less risk-averse, like, for example, Ubisoft or Blizzard or any of the really, really big gaming companies.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think there are some surprises on the horizon from some creative people that use AI in such a smart way that they're able to generate a game with the caliber and impact of, for instance, Grand Theft Auto 6 without us currently knowing it. And I'm also very curious to see if Grand Theft Auto 6 will have AI-generated NPCs or not. Because that's a game they've been working on 10 plus years, right? They probably have set it all up in a certain way. And if they don't have something like that, I'm curious to see where the technology will be at the end of 2025 compared to such a game. Yeah.
Well, that's, of course, an interesting question, because that might then be, the next step. You told me before we started recording, you're playing Baldur's Gate 3. Right.
I'm trained. Great example. I'm currently deep into Baldur's Gate 3. Yes, that's what I do with free time.
Into Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3. And Baldur's Gate 3 was kind of, it came out. A lot of people were looking forward to it, but it was a success, like unlike anything this year, right? We're not usually into the gaming industry and what's going on there, but Baldur's Gate was so successful. Actually, technically, it came out in 2023, right? But it was so successful that other gaming studios were saying that they were kind of attacking Baldur's Gate team for doing things that made it so successful out of jealousy or misunderstanding. But Baldur's Gate was created by a very small little studio. And it just goes to show, this year the same thing is going to happen. And I think it's going to be that indie company is going to do something really revolutionary, and then a studio like Rockstar with Grand Theft Auto, they will be like, holy shit, we need to do something with this. Yeah. By the end of 2025, maybe you'll get a DLC for Grand Theft Auto where they will basically introduce NPCs that are AI generated or AI powered or something, if they can make that work. Something like that could happen.
Yeah, I think that is the right prediction. So the Metaverse big breakthrough, people always think that it is one digital world that we are in. I don't think we are yet there, but this is the first big step into generating these with AI in getting there. And we will see the first breakthroughs in 2025.
Yep. I would like to add one more thing to that, because we spoke a lot about the gaming aspect of that and the 3D element. Meta's Ray-Ban glasses, back to Zuck. Meta's Ray-Ban glasses have been steadily on the rise. They've seen so many upgrades rapidly, like improvements, software-wise, features on the glasses. And I also think that we should keep in mind that the metaverse is not just visual. The metaverse is the further, deeper integration of our digital lives into our physical lives, where the friction of transitioning is removed, right? Because if we take our phone out, we go to the digital world, but there is a transition from the physical to the digital. Same with the laptop and the computer. And a lot about the metaverse is about making that friction or that transition basically disappear. Yeah. So Meta Ray-Ban glasses, even though they're not augmented reality yet in the sense of visual augmentation, they are already a audio augmentation, because they see what we see. There's an AI in there that allows us to interact with that AI. That AI can be, commenting on contextually on our environment, on the things that we're doing. So that the room for potential there is great. It's massive, right? Meta rolled out on the Ray-Ban glasses, and Yelmar, one of our innovation network ambassadors, he just got one. They rolled out a live translation now on these headsets or on these glasses. So I can talk to you and it can live translate to me if I'm going on holiday, stuff like that. That's going really fast. And so in the next year, we'll see a lot of that kind of expansion of metaverse integration with our world happen as well. So we're not fully there yet, but like you said, it's a gradual thing, and we shouldn't just think of the visual side of it.
No, agree. Yeah. Let's talk about some other big innovations that, how do we frame this? Predictions. There are going to be breakthroughs due to AI, for instance, in nuclear power. We have these small nuclear power installations that are being developed. I think that 2025, the acceptance of nuclear power, at least, let's put it differently. I think that governments, especially the US government, will do a lot to make this more a popular media campaign about nuclear power, although we had 30 or 40 years ago. And I think we see more development in that direction, and also with more safety due to AI. That's one of the things that we'll learn more of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for one, I am super happy to see that nuclear is making a massive comeback. Without getting political about the reasons back in the 70s why they sidetracked nuclear power, I think nuclear power was always best decision to make for energy. I mean, if you purely look at the statistics, and anybody that doubts what I'm saying right now, I highly recommend you watch Oliver Stone's documentary, Nuclear Now. Oliver Stone is an incredible documentary maker, also, of course, a famous filmmaker, but he made a great documentary, Nuclear Now. And if you look at that and you look at the statistics, you see that nuclear is just by far the cleanest and safest kind of a way to produce energy until we get to fusion. And it's making a massive comeback now. And so it's funny to see, because part of the nuclear comeback is not actually the result of us really wanting cleaner energy. It's a result of the need for massive amounts of energy for AI. So it's just crazy, because people say, AI is bad for the world, but if you can shift your framing, if you can shift your perspective, you see that it's actually going to be one of the best things for the world to happen. Is that the need for energy for AI is driving investment and a completely kind of framing of nuclear energy, which will lead to a far more significant transition to sustainable energy than, for example, wind energy could ever achieve. And solar power is doing really well. Wind energy, I think we should have never even gotten into that. That's a very complicated, different conversation. But it's going to be massive.
Yeah,
it's going to be massive.
And another one, and I'm really curious to see how this will be adopted by the general public, is big advancement in quantum computing. And we already saw the beginning of that. In December, we saw the release of Willow. Was that from Google, or is that IBM? Yeah, it's Google, huh?
That's from Google, yes.
Yeah. And making calculations septillion times faster than a traditional computer can do on a certain calculation. But the advancements in quantum computing, just in this month, there were hints in time going backwards, discovering the top quark in the Large Hadron Collider, even hints of a multiverse which is connected to the quantum realm, things that nobody really understands, but quite fascinating to see where they will lead in 2025 as these advances continue. Right, that's just...
This year is one of the stocks that unfortunately I missed. We could have made a lot of money. So this is a stock.
Yeah, we could have made a lot of money this year.
Well, the crazy thing, but then I'm serious. I mean, especially people like you, me, we talk about this all the time. This is Quantum Computing Inc. They went from $1 in November to 25 at the peak on the 18th of December. Right? I mean, if I invested, if you invested 100 here, you've gotten back at 2,500. So that's just crazy. And it just shows how quantum computing is also not just on the rise in terms of what it's capable of, but that, again, the same thing we saw with AI is that because there's some breakthroughs, this creates a massive influx of money and brain power to come to play.
Here's a question that I just don't know, and it's very difficult. I often ask you for the answer, Aragorn. So I saw some other predictions. People are predicting Bitcoin going to 200,000 and even above that. Is it possible to have both Bitcoin and quantum technology? Because if quantum technology is so powerful, it can decrypt the keys, is Bitcoin then still any valuable?
Well, the answer would be no, but it's kind of not as simple as that.
No.
So first off, and this is perfect because it ties exactly into some things I wanted to say on this topic. At the start of the year, Hannah Fry, who is a British, she's a mathematician, and scientist. I love her program. She makes a lot of really cool stuff. And she made a program which was sponsored by Nokia of all companies. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. But she made a show where she goes to IBM to talk about quantum computing. Because IBM has been traditionally the company that's most invested in quantum. They've built some of the most significant quantum computers. And she talks about what's going on there. And one of the interesting things was that IBM initially had a roadmap where they were expecting to kind of have exponential growth in the amount of qubits in a quantum computer. So the amount of qubits is like, that kind of signifies how fast it can compute, right?
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems in quantum computing was that if you scale up qubits, you get more errors, right? So more qubits means that it makes more mistakes. And at a certain point, if you have so many errors, it becomes useless.
Yeah.
So this was a big problem. And for IBM, the problem was so huge that they decided to scale back their timeline and their expectations roadmap in terms of how fast they could grow quantum computers because they couldn't solve this issue yet. Now, what makes the Willow chip from Google so special? It came out of nowhere, but the Willow chip, so the quantum computer at IBM, and I might be not 100% right, but so I'm just, disclaimer, but IBM quantum computer, if I'm not mistaken, is 1500 qubits right now, the best quantum computer they have. Okay, so hey, this is post-recording Aragorn, and I just wanted to do a little thing, because in the newsletter, we spoke about qubits and quantum computing and what was going on there and how it would affect Bitcoin. And I said some things about numbers, and they weren't actually 100% correct, so I just wanted to make sure I fixed that. So, in the newsletter, we spoke about how many qubits the best quantum computer in the world has right now. And I said 1500. Well, actually, it's 1180. This quantum computer is from 2024, December 2024. Atom Computing leads with 1180 qubits as a quantum computer. So that's the biggest quantum computer in the world, which is followed closely by IBM's quantum computer with 1121 qubits, which is the Condor processor, right? The Willow, Google's Willow quantum processor, which was released this year, has 105 qubits, right? So that's a 10x smaller than the biggest quantum computers in the world, but it has significantly improved type of technology because it doesn't have an increasing error rate as it is scaled. So that's first on those numbers. Then secondly, we also spoke about how many qubits would be required to break Bitcoin cryptography. Now, technically or theoretically, a quantum computer with 1500 logical qubits would be able to break a 256-bit EEC cryptography, which is kind of what Bitcoin uses. Not exactly, but it's definitely a 256-bit key. However, because the limitations of quantum computing so far were that there is a lot of error correction required, because if we scaled up the amount of qubits, more qubits would basically return errors, and therefore we need more qubits to compensate. The expectation was that we'd need 10 million to 1 billion qubits to be able to break Bitcoin cryptography. However, and this is relevant, the Willow chip from Google, which only has 105 qubits, but it no longer has this error correction problem. So technically, if Google can scale up their chips to the level of 1500 qubits, which I want to remind you is still more than even the biggest quantum computer in the world has today, that would be the point at which Bitcoin cryptography could be broken. So so there you have it. So that means that we have definitely moved a lot closer to quantum computing being a danger to Bitcoin's cryptography in the next 3 years than we were at the start of 2024. Getting back to Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin community is becoming aware of this. All crypto are. So over the next years, we'll definitely see something happening like Bitcoin will look at a fork to upgrade their cryptography or whatever. I mean, I'm no super deep expert in this stuff, but they have the opportunity to fix this before shit hits the fan. If they don't, you're absolutely right.
Do you know why there is 10,000 qubits needed? Is that the complexity of to crack the crypto? That's basically the amount? Okay, so. Okay.
That's basically it. Yeah, that's basically it. Right. So anything under 10,000 qubits, well, this is not an exact number. Again, a disclaimer here, but just to give you a feel for how that sits. I can look it up exactly maybe for the show notes, but it's just a matter of the complexity and the requirements for being able to solve that kind of cryptography in any reasonable amount of time, right? Right now with 1500 qubits, it would still take years to kind of break Bitcoin crypto, and nobody has access to a quantum computer for years on end, right? We only have a few of them in the world, and availability is limited and very expensive.
Thanks. That's very insightful and also very interesting. It's difficult to predict something that will happen there, right? It's especially in quantum. It's so. There's this interesting quote that if you think you understand quantum, you don't understand quantum. That's literally true, right? Another prediction. You talked about in the beginning about 2024 being the year of robotics, and I totally agree with the development side of things of there. Can we safely predict that we'll see some of those on the street in 2025? Well, most certainly not in Europe, I'm sure, but somewhere in China or in the US.
I mean, Martijn Lookahead ordered Unit 3.1 and its delivery has been postponed, but I have no reason to assume that it won't arrive in 2025. So I think we will see the first humanoid robots also in Europe, despite Europe's best attempts at killing innovation at every opportunity.
Yeah, there are no rules for it, of course. So if we would purchase one, just VPN the whole thing, we're just going to let them walk our dog. Okay, let's do that. Prediction, Aragorn and Patrick are going to buy a robot this year.
Let's just say that if Innovation Network goes well, my keynotes keep going well, then I definitely think it's a possibility.
Watch before you're going to be replaced by a robot.
Yeah, and I'm 100% convinced that in 2025, I mean, we've already seen, right? Because don't forget, we saw that wall robot, which was being tested in South Korea with the police, right?
Yeah,
that was an AI robot. It was literally a massive wheeled wall, but it's an AI robot that can be remotely controlled and has all kinds of autonomous
but something like that here on the streets in the UK or France or the Netherlands or Germany, don't see that happening that quickly.
No, I don't see that happening. But I mean, talking broadly globally, right? There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, I'm not happy to say this, but one of the best performing companies in the US is built by Lucky Palmer. Right? Or Lucky Palmer, which is the guy who basically, started Oculus, then sold to Meta, then was fired by the Zuck, and then he was like, I have to prove that I'm not a one day fly. And then he started a company building autonomous weapons, Anduril, which is the sword of Aragorn, from Lord of the Rings. That's what it's called after.
And it's powered by OpenAI.
And it's powered, yes, and Palantir. Because this is another thing people don't realize. So Palantir is also a term from Lord of the Rings. Palantir were the stones, big kind of stones that the wizards use to look to other parts of the world so they can have information about the world. And Palantir is one of the biggest AI companies that nobody really talks about because it doesn't build AI for the public. It builds AI for governments and defense programs and stuff like that. Yeah. And Palantir is also working with Anduril. Their names are both from Lord of the Rings and of course, it's Americans because they all believe that what they're building is to defend the free world, all of that. But, these developments are taking place. And Palantir is making completely autonomous robots that can, that can operate on their own. And I think in 2025, we're going to see the first deployment of those in some conflicts. And this is something that I'm a little worried about.
Yeah, so this is interesting. You're now making opening an interesting avenue. So just quickly, I think it's more likely that we will see those robots being used in wars than they are on the street being letting out the dogs.
Yeah, I mean, we in the West might not want it, but there is already video footage of China and also testing out humanoid robot dogs with flamethrowers and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that Putin is also, I think there's footage of that as well. And some of these leaders, they just don't have the same kind of moral or ethical codes that we might want or expect in the West. And that's just the thing, right? So, yeah. Maybe not go too far into this scary part of that topic.
No. Let's keep it more fun. Well, let's move to another one. Let's move to predictions on AI enhancement itself. And I think that, especially here in the Netherlands and in Europe, we will see in 2025 more of XAI, Grok, the one from Elon Musk. And the reason I think that is going to happen is because the speed of development over there, they have opened this mega cluster called Colossus. It has 100,000 liquid cooled and GPUs. And they recently have a 5 billion new fund after another one. So one or two of these big clusters will be built again, and that will fuel Grok 3. Now add that up with the video footage coming in from the cars, all the real-time data from X to have more data. It's going to be fascinating, and Elon Musk behind the helm. We will definitely see more of it in 2025. Most of the people in my surrounding here in the Netherlands do not use Grok because you have to have a premium account. X is not all that popular with everybody, but that will change.
And I agree. I have to admit that I've been using Grok more and more. And the simple reason for that is that Grok actually has far less guardrails and is far less unwilling to answer questions. Yeah. And I mean, this is a different topic, obviously, but we've discussed it. I feel that we're really in a difficult position where social media is increasingly kind of censoring and moderating what people are saying and doing and the kind of information we do or do not have access to. And in that kind of world, although I don't agree with it, people like me who say controversial things have to look for ways to get to answers. And the simple truth is that sometimes I can't get my answers from Claude or ChatGPT. So I am actually forced to go find different things. And I found that Grok, even though Grok, in terms of the quality of the model, is significantly behind these two, it always gives me the answers. And on top of that, it's like you said, I didn't think that this would be so relevant when it was first announced, but Grok's access to real-time information from X about what's going on has proven to be really, really, really so important when you want to have a conversation about a relevant actual topic that's taking place in the world right now, and you want to have some honest answers that are not, extremely biased or kind of guardrailed or where it starts by, but sometimes you ask ChatGPT or Claude something, and then it'll first give you a whole blah story about how you need to a lecture about how you need to interpret that information. Like, sorry, but who the hell are you? You're not my mother. Like, get it, leave your woke shit at the door. But yeah,
I just a little segue. I was playing Baldur's Gate, and when I have difficulties, I'm asking, of course, AI. So how to deal with this boss or that boss, and then ChatGPT says, "I cannot help you with that issue." And I go like, "Dude, I'm playing a fucking game. I'm playing Baldur's Gate. Oh, then I can give you instruction on how to kill." What the fuck, man? Come on.
Yeah. Actually,
leave the morals to me.
Leave the morals to me. Yeah. I mean, it's just such a disrespectful way of treating any human being because, so you don't trust me to be in charge of my own life, make my own decisions. You have to start deciding for me what I can. It's just ridiculous. But
that's what I
call
a different conversation. Dystopia. Yeah.
But yeah,
but
that's
do you see any
coming
other?
Back to what you said.
Yeah.
Well,
AI. Go ahead.
This is Grok 2. This is Grok 2 we're using. So I agree. You wrote in the show notes, Grok 3 is going to take over. I think Grok 3 might be massive, and that is also because what you said, Elon Musk. Elon Musk is showing time and time again that he can move way faster than anybody else, and he made this decision now to get into AI, and he did this supercluster, right? He built that in what? Was it 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's just an amazing story in a couple of weeks or months or something like that.
Yeah, and Jensen Huang said, and this is the guy that knows this, Jensen said normally this takes 6 to 8 months. And Elon Musk just did it in a month. And it just goes to show that this guy can do superhuman things, and that's why you can never count him out. I thought for a while that he was out of the AI race because he came in too late. But if anybody can catch up, then it's going to be Elon Musk.
Not only catch up.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. But other than Grok, just a question, where do you think? IQ 120, where will we be at the end of 2025? And which company will have a lead?
Way beyond that. Beyond that. So I've seen the results from 03, right? Which is the next model after 01 from OpenAI.
Yeah.
And supposedly the best reasoning model in the world that's been announced. 03 has already an IQ of 180. Right, in some fields, and then but generally over 150. Right, generally on average over 150 in every category. That means that this basically it's like Einstein was 150, and he was just a physicist. So this model has 150 in everything. Like people don't even comprehend that. The fact that it's not just good in one thing; it's good in everything. And this model has already been announced. It's already basically, almost done. It's going to be rolled out. If we see even the same kind of thing as we saw this year. And you got to keep in mind that OpenAI is developing new AI and they're using their best model, right? All of these companies are. So we have this feedback loop, right? And Jensen Huang is developing new chips using his best AI, feedback loop, right? So yeah, I don't see how by the end of 2025, we're not already having at least have a model announced like 04 or 05, which will have an IQ of 250 or beyond on average.
Wow, man, that's just...
Yes, wow.
Yeah, that's almost twice as smart as me.
Yeah. And by the end of 2025, these models will be 90 to 99% cheaper than they are today, right? Because right now people will say, well, yeah, but these models are super expensive to use. And yes, OpenAI have more it's going to have more expensive subscriptions. Yes, it's going to be true. But the cost of using these models is still going to go down, which means that availability and access to them will also scale exponentially, right? Yeah.
Okay. Let's maybe finish it off with predictions that have economic impact. And let me start. I thought job loss was a little bit further on the horizon, but I think next year, 2025, will be in some areas we will see bigger layoffs, and I think it will happen more in the tech sector. There recently was a video from Mark Benioff stating that he first would need a little bit more salespeople before he would start laying off more people, because with AI they can just develop more. Klarna has during 2024 set an example of how they doing it. They laid off a lot of people. This is a company called Bird in Amsterdam that sacked a lot of people for the same reason. They can do the same with AI. I think it's gonna be a central topic in 2025. What do you think?
Yeah, I have absolutely no doubt about this. I mean, it's hard to get a real grip on the numbers globally because there's no consolidated kind of report on what's going on yet, at least not that I know of. But we're seeing everywhere AI usage is going up. I mean, Google reported, for example, that was it 20% of all of their coding is already done by AI.
Yeah. So if you take in consideration the line that you just laid out with the intelligence of AI, and these companies have that intelligence in their possession, they build it, and I think they will use more and more AI. 20% will become 30%, 40%, 50% with DeepMind. So Google doesn't need all those people that they currently have, and from there it will have a ripple effect sooner, I think, than people realize, and that will have its impact on governments on reacting on that. Yeah.
I'm just asking.
You're asking AI?
Yeah, I'm asking 01. Just curious. So because the thing is, I mean, for example, the Tony Blair Institute estimates that between 60 and 300,000 jobs will be lost in 2025, or not lost, displaced, is what they call it, displaced, which I think.
Yeah, that's just.
What does that even mean? It means these jobs are going to be lost.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. So 01 gave me an answer. The World Economic Forum earliest projections from 2025 suggested around 85 million jobs could be disrupted by automation and AI by 2025, with a possible creation of 97 million new roles. Yeah, okay. So I saw that report. I don't believe that for a second. See, so the thing is, the real hard numbers are not there. And the problem is that nobody's calculating in the exponential factor, the law of accelerating returns, the speed at which it is happening, and the capabilities. So I honestly believe nobody has a real good idea of what's going to happen. If I were to judge, I'd say that by the end of 2025, we'll see at least 4% growth in job displacement in all of Europe and the West, right? And that doesn't sound like a lot, but you need to realize that 3% is a massive amount, because if it's 3% every year, then in 3 years we'd be at 9%. Right. And in 9 years, we'd be at, 25% job loss. Right. On top of the standard basic kind of thing. Right. So that's massive. At that point, 25 to 30% job loss or joblessness, we're coming at a tipping point for an economy. Right. That's a tipping point. We don't need 50% of people to lose their jobs for an economy to start imploding on itself. Right. So I think it's going to go really, really much faster than people anticipate. I think this year you're going to see a lot of people going online. By the end of 2025, I'm 100% certain we'll have seen the first kind of rioting or protests against AI taking jobs and demands from governments to start acting on this.
And this is interesting, right? Because people not having to work anymore in a world of abundance is the end goal here, right? And if for every step towards that goal, we're going to go into riot mode, then something isn't going right. So governments and influencers are, and we as well, I think we should influence that and shift the mindset on how to deal with that in a proper way. And I don't know, I don't have the answers here, right? But universal basic income or a long-term strategy, or maybe in Europe, think about your own supercluster to be not so dependent on China or the US. Those could all be things that, and this is not a prediction, but I hope that Europe will take on in the coming year, because that has to be established in this year. Otherwise, we'll have some more significant problems like riots.
Yeah. Well, you know what the thing is that looking, and here is Aragorn future story. Historically speaking, there's no meaningful, really big transition without disruption, right? The first industrial revolution, as Mustafa Suleyman writes in his book, right at the end or at the start, I think the Anthropocene, he writes how the weaver came together to go and burn machines that were taking their jobs. And this was rather a small kind. Well, it wasn't small; it was significant, and it took the fight was going on for 10 years. But that's what happened. There's no way we can avoid that, right? There's just no realistic way of doing that, because even if you tell people that utopia is around the corner, if they need to accept that maybe for 10 years they might be jobless in an economy that still requires them to buy bread at the supermarket to survive, they won't give a shit. That's the truth. And there's this famous quote, which is attributed to Alfred Henry Lewis from 1906 issue of the Cosmopolitan. He said, there are only 9 meals between mankind and anarchy. And it's very relevant, because this is the thing. You might promise people utopia, but if they, for 9 days, won't get a meal, all hell is gonna break loose, right? And this is going to be the struggle. And there will be places in the world where it will be impossible to kind of stop that from happening. So we really, I know that people don't want to hear this. It's not a nice thing to talk about, and I'm supposed to be an optimist, but we really have to prepare that there's going to be a lot of unrest in the world, because we're not just looking at AI job loss. We're also looking at climate change. We're also looking at significant conflicts in parts of the world. We're looking at an increasing kind of polarization also on a religious level because of what's going on in the Middle East. And all of these things are coming together, and they will all influence what's going on.
Yeah, well, let it be a warning, because it's either that or we do something about it.
Exactly. And we all have a job there. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Then it's all over. What a depressing end of the year. No. Let's. I see that we are way beyond an hour, but it's not important actually. But let's wrap it up. Let's just wrap it up with what we will do with the Innovation Network next year, right? Because here's another prediction. I think that, let's say, 10 to hopefully 20% of the organizations really will embrace an exponential strategy, or need to formulate an exponential strategy. That means a chief AI officer or a chief innovation officer that is not in one department like sales or marketing or production, but it's a horizontal across the organization. And that is exactly what the Innovation Network is doing, helping organizations to formulate such an exponential strategy. So we tie into that prediction. And so that means a lot of kick-ass keynotes from Aragorn. Do you have some new shit in your mind after your holiday, buddy?
There's always new stuff coming. I looked it up. I did 45 keynotes this year. So, and I intend to do at least 60 in 2025. I'm working on a theater show, as you know, which means that I won't just be doing B2B events, but I'll also be doing B2C events. I will be going through 2 theaters across the Netherlands if everything works out. So you will be able to buy tickets if you want to go and see me. I've had so many people this year ask me, Aragorn, when are you going to talk again so I can bring my husband or my wife or my child or whatever. So that's going to be finally something that's going to come true. I'm going to be able to do that. And of course, me, because Innovation Network, I mean, all of my talks are nice, but Innovation Network is, of course, not just about that inspiration part, but it's about those real insights and the action. Yeah, I think, I don't know, we didn't really agree on this yet, but I'm hoping to do at least 25 dinners this year, right? So that's
Well,
25
exactly.
opportunities.
So I think the dinners are so important because there is where we build connection between people and letting people understand the impact of inaction, the impact of not collaborating together, not only within your organization, but organizations together and as nations together and as network states together. And that's where we're driving this for and actively helping people to formulate an innovation strategy. So we are all in helping you with that. So hopefully this was very helpful and looking forward to do more newsletters with you, buddy, in next year.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a lot of, actually, I have to admit, I'm totally surprised that we managed to do a newsletter every 2 weeks. Well, we did kind of not do one last week, doing it now, but I am really, really, really surprised that we managed to do this. And the also there, exponential growth in the quality improvements, and I hope we can keep doing this. In 2025, I would love to, and this is a call out to everybody watching, listening to the newsletter, to our own innovation network. We've, of course, brought together more than 70 incredible professionals this year at 2 meetups. So there both times we had like over 50 people. Some were the same, some were others. I think in total we had more than 100 different individuals, all working with and around AI and innovation. And of course, our dinners are nice for inspiration, but they're also a place where we bring together these professionals with companies that are in need of kind of expertise. And I'm really hoping that as Innovation Network goes, we'll be doing a lot more of that, but we'll also be bringing on some of these experts in the newsletter, hopefully in 2025, to introduce them to you, to have them share their insights and their thoughts with you. I think that would be a nice little ambition for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So up to a very strong, innovative and fun 2025. And don't forget to like, subscribe.
Absolutely.
And as they say in the Netherlands.
Like they say in the Netherlands, see you later.
Innovation Network, Patrick and Aragorn lead the way. Exploring tech's future, what will they say? Inspiring change with vision so bright, our hosts guide you through the future's light. Bridging the gap of exponential growth, Patrick and Aragorn share the truth. Join our community, let's innovate with Innovation Network.